He was a sixth-round draft pick with the Saints, made such an impact with the Saints during the 80s that he ended up on the Saints All-50th Team. His name, he's Johnnie Poe.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Kearney.
This is Toy Cook.
I'm Randy Mueller.
This is Quinn Early.
I'm Delvin Bro.
I'm Alex Molden.
I'm Jake Cup. And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint.
The Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
Life of a Saint.
And this is Life of a Saint. Whodat?
Johnnie Poe, thank you for speaking with me. I guess we'll start at the very beginning. What are some of your lasting memories growing up in St. Louis?
Well, I actually grew up in East St. Louis, right across the river from St. Louis.
Okay.
A lot of people think my hometown is part of St. Louis, but it's actually in Illinois. St. Louis is in Missouri. We had great memories growing up during the time that I grew up. We would get together, play basketball, football, a little baseball, ran track, because track was actually my first love. And, then after the first track season I went through, I decided I would play football and basketball, and I jumped out there.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that, because my next question was going to be, was football always your sport of choice growing up?
From playing in we played street football. Mm-hmm. I was a receiver, and through the beginning of my career, and you ran a down and out would wind up between two parked cars.
Yeah, exactly. Light post to light post or something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we had fun. We really played in the snow. We loved playing snow football. We would get out there in the wintertime, and we'd have a ball.
So you were a multi-sport athlete in high school then, correct?
Yeah, when I got to high school, I got there, I was running track and playing football. And then the next year, I added basketball. But I only played basketball for a couple of months. Me and the head coach didn't see eye to eye because of, how he was playing the guys. So I left the basketball team. Then my junior year, I played a little baseball. Didn't like that because, the positions that they wanted to play me in. Then my senior year, I went out for wrestling. And the only reason I didn't, stay with the team of wrestling, they wanted me to drop weight. I was only 160 pounds. And they wanted me to drop down to 149 to wrestle.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision with that one.
Because when I got to Mizzou, I only weighed 178 pounds.
All right, so being a St. Louis kid, Missouri obviously is the local university. Is that why you picked them, or was there something else that kind of drew you into Mizzou?
There was two schools I was looking at. I was looking at Illinois, but the biggest problem with Illinois is Illinois did not recruit in their backyard. This is University of Illinois' backyard, and they lost Kelly Winslow, myself, Eric Wright, who played with the San Francisco 49ers. There was so many guys that was going into college in the NFL, and Illinois was not recruiting in this area. They were going to Texas. They were going to California. They were getting all these high-name guys. They were going after all these high-name guys, and they weren't getting them.
So throughout the journey to make it to the NFL, a lot of different people have to pour into you and give their time and give their effort and give their expertise. Who would you say was the biggest influence in your journey making it from that kid in St. Louis ultimately into the NFL?
From my head coach to family member, probably the two of the biggest guys that, were pushing me in my career was my brother, my younger brother. He played linebacker. He tore up his knee, and that was the end of his career in junior high school. And my cousin who played with me, he was an offensive tackle at the time I was playing. So me and him played together. My brother was a year behind me. And my cousin, Gary Harper, he pushed me to the point where, I was able to shine on the football field to get offered college scholarships.
And what was your brother's name?
Okay. I'm laughing because, okay, my dad's name was Johnnie Will Poe. My name is Johnny Edward Poe. My brother's name is Johnny Earl Poe. So, yeah. So, growing up, me and my brother were called by our middle names. He was called Earl, and everybody called me Edward. And I went through all kind of hazing in high school and college.
And what would you say was the toughest obstacle you faced in that journey from being that little kid that first picked up a football, ultimately to making the NFL?
The number one break-in for me was going to college as a wide receiver. And when Al Onofrio, who was the coach that recruited me, got fired, and the new coaching staff came in, Warren Powers as the head coach, the transition they tried to make myself, Eric Wright, who was a running back, I was a wide receiver, Eric Wright was a running back, and we had another roommate named Cecil Holloway, who was a quarterback from Florida. They made all of us start practicing as defensive backs because each one of us were on offense. And the defensive backfield at that time in Missouri had no speed. I mean, there was nobody in the backfield that ran under like a 4.6 40.
Gotcha.
So we trained, we double trained every day during spring ball after our freshman year, to the point where me and Eric Wright were roommates. So we looked at each other and said, "Hey man, something's got to change." And we went to the head coach and we told him, "So you know what? We'll just switch over to defensive back."
So how much did being an offensive player actually help you in your development as a DB?
And that's the thing about it, is being a former wide receiver and then transitioning over to a cornerback, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 10, 1st and 10. You as a former wide receiver that's now playing defensive back, what would they throw at me? And you know, you would have these things, but the thing was not to think too much. Football is more reaction than thinking. Mm-hmm. But as you break the huddle after defensive call is made, you're saying to yourself, you know, what would these guys throw at me? You know, what route would they throw at me that they think I can't defend?
So prior to the draft, you were actually projected to go as early as the 4th round. You end up going in the 6th round. Did that really matter to you, or were you just, get me on an NFL squad and let me show you what I can do?
That's how I felt. You know, when we were coming out of Mizzou going to the draft, they projected me between the 4th and the 7th round, and I wound up fading to the 7th round. Now, part of that wasn't my fault, you know, because for some reason, the coach, the head coach and I didn't see eye to eye after this big meeting that, you know, that the black players had, because they felt like a lot of black players weren't being played, like I was talking about with the secondary. The secondary at that time was all white, and that's when this new coaching staff came in, decided to, you know, to get some speed in the secondary. And we really didn't see eye to eye, you know, when they first came in. So my high school coach calls me during the draft, and he's like, "Johnny, I just got a disturbing phone call." I'm like, "What you talking about?" "Well, the Oakland Raiders were thinking about picking you up around the 4th or 5th round, but the coaching staff at Mizzou told them you didn't like white people."
Wow.
So that pushed me all the way back to the 7th. And the thing was half the guys on my team that were friends of mine were white. You know, I had no problem, but the head coach and I got into it one day, and he accused me of smoking weed. And everybody on the team knew I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. I was the cleanest guy maybe on the football team. Mm-hmm. And he accused me, and I didn't like it. So he and I got in an argument on a bus. We were getting ready to go play University of Kansas. And they had to calm me down. And after that, I guess he figured, I'll see that he doesn't make it to the NFL, or if he does, it'll be in the late rounds. You're probably the first person besides friends of mine that I've actually let this out to. I've kept it in me for years and years, and the reason it's coming out is we were on a Zoom call the other day with some other guys that played in Mizzou, and we found out that our coach, he's going through dementia. And, and I felt bad for him and everything. And one of the guys said, it's bad for him. He said, because I know what happened between you and him. And I said, I actually do. I actually feel for him.
So what was it like for you when you actually got the call that you were drafted by the Saints?
The coach that called me, the defensive back coach, he was actually the defensive back coach at Nebraska. And, in the Big 8, we played Nebraska every year. And so that's kind of how he knew about me, from playing against Nebraska every year.
Gotcha.
And he gave me the call. And, I was elated because, like I said, I had been sitting there since the 4th round. I watched it. I listened to the whole draft that day, me and my wife. And I actually thought I wasn't going to be, I thought I was going to be a free agent. And I actually had left and went to get something to eat. And I came back. And my roommate was like, hey, man, somebody's trying to get you on the phone. And like I said, my head coach called me also. He's like, Johnny, they called me because they were trying to get you.
So when you got to New Orleans, you take a look around and you see all the talent. How confident were you that you were going to make the roster as a rookie?
After I got there and we started going through practice, in Florida, I kind of felt like I had a shot at least being the nickelback. It came down between myself and probably a guy named Mike Spivey. And, we were kind of the two of the guys that were looking pretty good as, Mike Spivey was a walk-on who had, tried out for a few NFL teams before. And here I was, this rookie. And, I think the nod of also being a draft choice of theirs kind of pushed me in also.
And when you got on the field, were there any players that took you under their wing and kind of show you what it's like to be an NFL player?
No, I've always been a home guy. I went to practice. I went home to the wife and kids. I did, guys would invite me, and, if it was like a basketball game we were going to play or something like that, yeah. But, I really didn't go out of the house. We sat around and we talked football when we did get together. But I was a homebody, and I was that way through high school, through college, and through the NFL.
Check out this list of legends that we've spoken to on the Life of a Saint podcast. If you haven't seen them all, I encourage you, not for me, but for them. Let's get back to it. So is there any added pressure as a rookie to kind of just get thrown into the deep end, or once you get out on the field, do your football instincts kind of take over at that point?
It was.
Yeah, okay.
It was because I got threw in on the sideline of the first game of the season playing against the San Francisco 49ers. There was a pass route ran out there on the field, and the right corner named Ricky Ray missed the tackle. And the receiver went for like 78 yards for a touchdown. They benched him and put me out there right after that play. And the thing about it was I could play both corners. Dave Waymer really felt better on the left corner. They wanted me to go to left and Dave to go to right. And Dave went to him and, begged him, said, hey, let me play left. I can play left better than I can play right. So they wound up putting Dave at the left corner and me at the right corner.
Now, you can't talk to Johnnie Poe without talking about 1983, 7 interceptions. What was different about that season that it all kind of just came together?
Confidence.
Okay.
Confidence. I was probably the one defensive back that could sit down and, they gave us tests on the planes to away games. And then the home games in the hotel room, they gave you tests. All the defenses that you were going to run that game were, you went through them all that week. And then the defensive coach would give you this test on where the defensive backs were supposed to be in certain defenses. I was probably the one defensive back that could name the defensive backs, where they were going to go, the linebackers, and the defensive linemen. And I got to the point where I got so good at it that my confidence on the field grew also, because I knew that if we were running this blitz, it was a blitz basically going from my side. So I had the opportunity to take a chance if it was a quick route. Gotcha. So my confidence just grew.
So this is a question I love asking guys from your era. What was it like going from Bum Phillips in '85 to Jim Mora in '86?
Bum Phillips was more of a relaxed coach. Bum Phillips was one of those guys. He's kind of stood up for each and every player. Coach Mora makes you stand up for yourself, and he's one of those, he was in the military, so, that's kind of how he ran everything. Bum Phillips was more laid back, and he kind of let guys do this and do that. But Coach Moore kind of, we're not doing that, because guys would go to Bum and say, hey, what if we do this, and Coach Moore was more of, it's going to be a decision between me and the other coaches.
As a defensive back in the 80s, you're staring directly at the dome patrol right in front of you every time you suit up. What was it like playing behind those guys?
See, that was the great thing about playing in the secondary behind them. You had the opportunity to take chances because you knew between Pat, Vaughn, Ricky Jackson, you knew somebody was going to get to that quarterback in a rush, and he was going to have to get rid of the ball. So you had that opportunity to play tight defenses where you could take chances. We had a good defensive line also. Frank Warren, Jim Wilkes. We had a good defensive line also.
So as I mentioned earlier, 1983 was your big personal season, but 1987 as a team was a different thing. You guys go 12-3. You make it to the playoffs. What was different about that season under Jim Mora that allowed you guys to have such success that the team had never really seen before?
Putting everything together.
Gotcha.
Not having to worry about, Coach Mora and them had to worry about the quarterback position. Then you get Bobby Hebert fine. You've got a defense that's really, the defense has been put together since '83. A few little knickknacks here, a few little knickknacks there, but the defense was doing pretty good. And then getting the offensive line, we got a couple of new offensive linemen there. It was finally where we had the personnel.
Now, obviously, as I mentioned, 1987 was a big year for the Saints, but a little bit frustrating for you. Was it important for you to kind of bottle up that frustration throughout the season just for the success of the team?
Yeah, I was. The biggest thing was that I believe it was the game that we had against the Dallas Cowboys. We were playing them. There was a pass thrown in the end zone, and it was over everybody's head. I'm running at it. Wide receiver from Dallas is running at it, and he ducks, and I jump. I get flipped over, and I land on my back. Then next week, we go to practice, and I was probably one of the most flexible guys in there. I can't even reach down and touch my toes. I find out later on that I have 2 ruptured discs in my back, basically which were called for surgery. And I had always said that I can't go through that. I'm one of them guys that just refuse to let anybody cut on it. Mm-hmm. And so out there, it hampered me as far as tackling, really, because, I got 2 in my back. Then eventually, tackling the way I did, I wound up having two vertebrae in my neck. So they went ahead and moved me to backup free safety and put Van Jakes out there in my corner. Did it go well with me? It was hard to swallow. It was hard to swallow, for starting that long and then wind up having to come in on nickel and dime situations.
So were you frustrated to the point where you were just done playing football, or did you still want to play and just didn't really care where it was going to be at?
See, I think a lot of people don't realize is I worked out for Green Bay, Atlanta, San Francisco, and the Giants, and the Cowboys, I think. And I wound up getting picked up by San Francisco. I went out to San Francisco, and their corner, Eric Wright, had tore his pelvic muscle. That's the reason they were looking for a corner. So I got out there, and when myself and San Francisco talked, I talked to them about playing safety. And they, okay, yeah, we're going to bring you out. We'll take a look at your safety. And when I get out there, they stick me right back at corner. So I played corner for 3 preseason games, and going into that 3rd preseason game, something locks up in my back. We get ready to go out for practice that morning. I can't move. They call the doctor, the trainer comes in, everybody's trying to, see what's going on. Ronnie Lott was my roommate, and I actually could not move. And it freaked me out so bad, I told my wife about it and everything, and we wound up flying out that weekend. I think this was like a Monday or Tuesday. We flew out that weekend. We played the Denver Broncos and came back. And we got back, I called my wife, and I was telling her about it. And she said, I wish you would retire. I don't want to push you in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And it was a hard decision. It really was, because I was starting at corner, and here these guys had just won a Super Bowl and got an opportunity to win another one. And their corners actually held out. So they didn't have any corners in there, except for the ones that were already there from training camp, and then myself coming over from New Orleans.
Gotcha.
And, so I'm starting at right corner again. And, I had a real good preseason. But like I said, it just really messed with my head that my back locked up like that, and I could not move. And, they kept me out of that morning practice. I practiced the afternoon practice. And from then on, it was just going through my head. Maybe I need to go sit down somewhere before something really happens to my back.
So you spend your entire lifetime leading up to playing in the NFL. You get to live out that dream. How tough was it when it was all over? How tough was it transitioning away from football?
It was real tough, because I get out, now you got to find a regular job. And like the day when Coach Moore called me up there, when Coach Moore called me to the facility and told me that they were releasing me, at that point, the one thing ran through my head was ask him about coaching. I really wanted to get into coaching. I really did. And I guess, the anger in me caused me just to get up, say, hey, thanks for, what you given me, and everything we went through. Have a good life. And I walked out the door, and the whole time I'm driving back home is, you should have asked him about coaching. That was the one thing that I felt like, that was the one thing I felt like was the biggest mistake that I made, because I think when Brett Maxey wound up retiring, he asked him about it, and they put him right into the coaching thing. And, and I blame myself. I let pride get in the way instead of, really thinking about it. And I get back home here, and I'm knocking myself in the head and everything. I wound up going back to my old high school, and they wanted me to be head coach. I said, no, just make me defense coordinator. I became defense coordinator there. Then when they shut my high school down, and there's this high school up here called East St. Louis Flyers. Everybody calls them East Side. They're the East St. Louis Flyers. I went to East St. Louis Lincoln. Mm-hmm. The East St. Louis Flyers came along after they shut Lincoln down, so you had all this talent in this area, everybody in one school now. And Coach, what's his name? I can't think of the coach. He wound up having like 7 or 8 or 9 state titles. And now the coach here now, I think he's had 2 or 3. We missed it when I was there, and I just finished coaching 2 years ago at a different high school. There's enough talent here where it's all put into one school. And I finally, got to coach. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I left there after my son graduated and, got out of it for a few years and then got back into it 2 years ago. But the problem with the school that I was in was they didn't have the finances for the football program, so they wound up dropping it.
As it sits, you are currently 6th all-time in interceptions for the Saints. A lot of those guys that are above you on that list are in the Saints Hall of Fame. Is that an honor that you think about that would be particularly important to you, or kind of if it comes, it comes?
I really would like to get in there. I really would. They called a bunch of us in, and it was like the 50, best players in Saints history, and I was part of that. I really enjoyed it. and would I like to be in the Saints Hall of Fame? I really would.
So I had the privilege of being at the Saints All-50th celebration game where they announced the team and had everybody come out on the field, and we got to see all the guys from different generations compiled into one big team. What was it like for you going through that whole experience as being one of those 50 guys?
You feel so honored by it because you feel like, you know, I've got this group of guys around me, and we feel like that we giving the best we can give to this football program, and you know, and when it finally succeeds, when it finally, you know, you get into the playoffs, you go deep into the playoffs, you know, in '09 when you win a Super Bowl, that's your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is, you know, and there's some guys like myself, that's probably the only thing I would give it up for is that Super Bowl ring.
So what is Johnnie Poe up to these days?
I did some coaching, and I've been, oh my God, how long now? 20, coming up on 25 years. For 25 years, when I actually got out, about a year after I got out, I got into the restaurant business. I was in that for about, 4 years. Yeah, I was in the restaurant business for about 3 or 4 years. I got out of the restaurant business, and I got into the casino business somehow. And I've been a manager at the local casino here going on 25 years now.
Wow. And you're still doing that today?
Still doing that today, thinking about retirement. The wife wanted me to pull the trigger this year, but yeah, I'm just I'm one of them guys where I just like staying on my feet.
Right.
I don't want to. To me, I call it stiffen up. I don't want to stiffen up, but you know, I'm really thinking about it now.
Okay, thank you so much to everyone that stuck it out. Unbelievably, we are approaching 1,000 subs, so thank you so much for the support. Thank you to Johnnie Poe. Who dat to you, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.